about Quizlet.
Great, thanks, Greg. I'm Alex Quintana. I'm a product manager at Quizlet. Quizlet, for those of you who don't know it, is a ed tech startup that builds a platform for students and teachers to study and master whatever it is they're trying to learn. We're used by about half of all high school students in the US and are currently exploring different conversational UX interfaces. Prior to Quizlet, I was the product manager at Hipmunk that ideated and built out Hipmunk's virtual travel agent, launching on email and then Slack, Facebook Messenger, Skype, and ultimately Microsoft Teams. I'm super excited to be able to pull out examples from the ed tech space, from e-commerce, and from being in the bot space early on before the platforms even kind of got going.
Excellent, thank you. All right, Obaid Ahmed, CEO and founder of Botmock. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and Botmock?
Sure, thanks, Greg. So Botmock is a designing and prototyping tool for your conversational UI. So what we enable to do is step before you decide where to build it, how to build it. You get to design all your conversation flows, what your customers are going to do, how are they going to go about solving the problem that you're building a bot for. And then you can actually run simulations within our sort of system, so you don't have to connect all the way to Facebook or Alexa or Google Home. So right now we support Facebook, Google Home, and Alexa, but down the road we are adding support for more platforms.
Conversational UI design software.
Yes.
Perfect. Joshua Wynn, product principal at Hipmunk.
Hey, Alex. Thank you for launching the bots. So my name is Josh Wynn. Currently, I'm product principal at Hipmunk. We're a travel meta search site, so find flights, hotels, travel ideas. Before the bot world, I was the first head of product at Tumblr and Flickr, so a lot of time in the social space. So I'm just really interested in interactions. In the social space, it's you're interacting with your friends, and now you're interacting with these personalities, right? Which is a super interesting area.
And Rob Lowe, co-founder. I have Chief Creative Officer. Is that or Executive Creative Director? Or you want to clarify that for us?
Let me explain. There's actually 2 typos up there, which is ironic because I own a proofreading service and I'm a professional copywriter, so I don't know how that happened. I'm not Rob Lowe. I'm Rob Lubo. And,
close enough. Okay.
And I'm not an EDC. I have been an Executive Creative Director, which is ECD. I guess you could say extremely damn creative if you want. But that's who I am. I've been a creative director for a long time, a copywriter, worked at major agencies on big brands. I was an original seed investor for Mad Mimi email marketing, marketing advisor for them, exited a few years ago, and co-founded BotCopy with 2 other people, and we're professional copywriters and concept designers, conversational designers for all kinds of bots.
Oh, the irony of the typos on yours. All right.
I'm over it.
Vittorio Bonfi, CEO and co-founder of Botsociety.
Yeah, hello everybody. Botsociety is a conversational UE design tool. You can preview and prototype for Slack, for Facebook Messenger, for Google Home. You can export videos, you can share. We have around 14,000 users at the moment, since March.
Excellent. So another design tool people can use to create bots.
Yes.
More or less.
Yes.
Excellent. So since we have all these design experts, why don't we take the panel a different direction and get your favorite bot, and I guess you're free to say it's your own, but perhaps it'd be great if you mentioned another bot, and it'd be great if you gave some reasons like why you like it, why you think the design is great. Yeah, why don't I start with, because you have the, well, okay. No problem.
So for me, one bot that I've been using a lot lately, especially since I'm an expectant father, is ParentSpark. And I think that ParentSpark actually kind of brings out one of the superpowers of bots in general, which is conversation and personality. They've developed a very clear tone. They provide advice to parents of young children in a conversational manner, and it feels like you're interacting with a friend. And just having a kind of fun conversation, and they use quick replies to move you through the flow, and it's just very quick, very quick and easy, and you're learning about parenting, which for me has been important. It's been a great use case.
So I have two of them I'm going to share. One of them is Poncho. It literally replaced, I removed the weather app from my phone because it would push data to me that I needed and when I needed it, and I could ask queries that I needed to ask for weather apps. So that was perfect, and it had that personality that, they mixed the humor and information pretty balanced. The other one is the Machao. I follow cricket, so that has been a great bot for following an 8-hour long game without watching TV. So, and the beauty of it is that it actually pushes notifications based on players as well as clips to me. So when something happens in the game, it can notify me and I can watch a clip when I want to. So I think that was a very good use case of, again, me not being stuck to a page that I'm refreshing all the time to get the scores or opening an app for the exact same information.
I also have two bots. The first one is called Do Not Pay, if you guys have heard of it recently. If you've been affected by Experian, you interact with this bot, and it allows you to create legal forms to sue Experian, so go bot. The second bot that I really like actually is on one of the prior panels. Whoa bot is really, really awesome. I've got the chance to play with it recently, and I think it touches on one of the trends that I've been seeing in bots, which is bot interactions are made of these little small moments. So before, where we're designing bots, it was all about these long sessions to get people through these funnels. And Woe.me or Woebot does a really good job of saying, hey, we're only going to interact with you for a few minutes. And we're going to run in the background, and we're going to provide value to you over the long-term relationship. So yeah, I really like that bot.
I second the motion on Wobot as well as Poncho. I like Swelly, and some of our staff members had the privilege to work on some of the early copy for Swelly. And kind of coming off of the success that I was part of with Mad Mimi, email marketing, which was acquired, it had a tremendous tone of voice, a great vibe, and we really put a lot of effort into that, choosing the right words to connect. And I'm seeing that same kind of vibe in brands like Swelly. In brands like Yala, which is a social media bot that lives on Slack. These apps do well in terms of being efficient and getting things done and providing a great service, but they also have a terrific language, kind of like the sacred words of the brand, and the sacred tone of voice is something that's consistent throughout.
Yeah, so I can name two. First one is VisaBot on Messenger. If you've never used it, it will help you in getting the visa to United States. Pretty useless if you're a US citizen, but it's designed very well. It's straight to the point, and a point I wanted to make is the most important phrase of your bot is the first phrase. Like the first thing your bot is going to say, 90% of the people will only see that. And it's very difficult to nail it down because first the copy is really short, and it has to be clear. And VisaBot does an amazing job at that. It also conveys a lot of personality. That's the first one. Second one is a voice bot for Alexa, which is called the Yes Sire. And it's a game, and you have to play it. It's so funny. And it's a conversational experience game. You can only say yes or no, but yeah, I cannot explain it. It's just, go try it out. It's an adventure in medieval age, and it's really funny.
So my favorite bot, well, I never got past the games tab, and I just play a lot of Sudoku, which I love. Design for chatbots. Such a, to some degree, limited user interface real estate. How do you approach design, right? You could also say that it's quite expansive if you think of it in your ability to understand text and for people to type. But there are limits to how much people can type on the go or in the use cases. They're generally using these types of things. So given those, let's call them constraints, what do you recommend? How do you approach design in that world with those given parameters?
So should I start? Can I start? So I think the first idea that you should approach is that the user is going to think about the bot as a conversation, as with a human, but it does not have a lot of context that you usually have in a conversation. So you don't see the person, you don't know what the room is in which you're talking. So the user expectations are really different, and they have to be set it up properly. And with that, I mean, for example, let's say that you want to make a chatbot which allows you to buy a train ticket, all right? And you have to understand where the user wants to go. If you just say, where do you want to go, without any other context, the user may say anything. At the same time, the user will stop because he's not sure what to do. So just providing an example, just 2 more words, like, for example, San Francisco, then will dramatically change the way people interact with the bot. So yeah, the first idea I wanted to put out is manage user expectation properly with the copy.
It seems to me that the messaging platform is pretty robust. So the premise of the question is one I don't experience. Looking back again to email when it first came out, there was a tendency to use sidebars and lots of columns and rows of videos, and it was cluttered. It was hard to know what to look at. And this is not the essence of what made email exciting to people. It was usually you get something from your friend, and it's real clean and simple and to the point, and brutally honest as well. So when advertisers started to become aware that, wait a second, let's tap into what made email so popular in the first place and make it a little more clean, streamlined, and personal. And then it started, I think we're going to see the same thing with bots. The ones that say, hey, yeah, the messaging channel is really crowded. Everybody's texting all day. It's not because there's so much clutter. It's because they got hooked on it by texting their friends. They're cracked out on getting these personal messages from their friends. So we look at what made messaging so hot in the first place and try to at least bring some of that into the intro at least. Keep it lean, keep it personal, and try not to put on too many bells and whistles right at the beginning. Is something to consider.
So I get really excited about tools, like I'm sure all of us do. So NLP is a tool, cards are a tool, quick replies are a tool. But I think for us, as of late, we really think hard about what users want. And I know that's somewhat a basic thing to say, but when we interview our users and say, okay, before you even get to the bot, what are you doing and what are you thinking? It's really important to think about their mindset before they interact with your bot so that you can design the solution for them. So for example, 33% of our users, actually 36% of our users tell us, well, I come to the bot just for kind of travel ideas. I don't really necessarily want to go deep in search, which is where NLP would work really well, right? NLP is great for that. But if they just want travel ideas, then that, I think, instructs us to use different tools, cards, photos, quick replies to reach those users.
So building upon that, I mean, the onboarding is important. The user expectation, how you're acquiring them, what did you tell them before they came to your bot? Did you run a Facebook ad? Did you run a campaign outside of Facebook or social media altogether? What led them to your bot? And that might not be one thing. So it could be multiple of these things. And you need that one, you only have one text you can send them. Or at least you should send them one text. Don't bombard them with like, hello, hi, and this and that. But like with everything else, build your conversation flows early on in your mind. Use the tools, right tools to build those out and see what is the one thing that most of your users would want to achieve and what's the one win that you want to give them. So for some of the bots, they actually tell you, this is what we can do, and then here's something you can try right now. Let me show you one quick example of what it is. So Hipmunk used to do that, and I think still does that. If you first start chatting with it, it'll tell you this is what you can do, but okay, where are you going to fly out from? It's a very specific question. It leads you into a particular funnel, and then gets you to your first win, which is you search for a flight, and you got results. You got hooked. And then you can go into hotels and other things. Same thing with Poncho. The first thing they ask you is, where do you live? And then they give you the weather. They don't ask you, do you want weather for 5 days, 4 days, 7 days? They just give you weather. And then they dive in. And as you use it more and more, they open up all the options for you. So, and use the tool set that the platform is giving you. So Facebook Messenger has different templates, you can use them, menus, buttons to lead the conversation. Alexa is open, it's voice-based, so remember how that will work. Google has both depending on how they're consuming your bot. So it will be on a device, you can have visual cues. On a Google Home device, for example, it's just audio. So you have to design for both and understand where the user is coming from.
So a tutorial, that's a tried and true method.
Yeah,
Or like a
onboarding.
walkthrough.
A
Great.
walkthrough, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Obed hit on a few good points that kind of fall into the category of like a general pitfall that a lot of bot builders fall into, which is trying to recreate a website within a bot. So for example, in the Hipmunk and the Poncho examples, both of those companies are doing something different than what they would do on web when a user goes to their site. And I think that as you, in general, as bot builders approach designing a new bot, they need to think about what are the problems that users are trying to solve with my company, and how can a bot on a messaging or a voice platform do that, solve those problems in a very unique way, utilizing the superpowers of a bot. So for example, like another kind of pitfall, some of the travel companies will recreate like a web form by saying, where are you flying to, where are you flying from, and you're answering everything kind of in line one at a time. And they're not utilizing the power of the conversation where somebody might just type Chicago, November 19th through 22nd, and then parsing that fully. Likewise, in education, one thing that we have to be cognizant of is how you come back to the customer or the user might answer a question, and who was the 5th president of the United States? They say Abraham Lincoln. It's wrong. But how do you come back to them in a natural way so that they're viewing, so the bot isn't just recreating a no, this is wrong, which the website would give you, but a more, hey, it's actually John Adams. I can't remember the 5th president, to be honest. But using a more conversational tone.
Yeah, so that's great. So how do you help people get through those use cases, right? I'm sure there's lots of people that are in this situation you just described where they work in a company and they're in a situation where like the web is very well understood, apps are somewhat well understood, but chat and the use cases that are appropriate for that are not well understood, right? In their organization. So what advice do you have for like helping them navigate people through that so they don't just go like, hey, just take our web form and throw it into a chatbot?
I think a great way is talking with your customer service team and actually reading through, if you have customer service chat or customer service email, reading through messages that customers are already sending to your company. For instance, at Hipmunk, when we were first concepting the idea of an email bot, we went through and parsed all of the customer service inbound email messages. And it helped us understand how users communicated with the brand, and it gave us ideas of like silly thing, or not silly, but things like how users write dates or designate locations and refer to airports. Those sorts of things were invaluable in developing the NLP and understanding kind of the scope of the problem that we needed to solve to hit the majority of use cases.
So what's the question? How to get the other stakeholders in the company to understand and be more aware of bots?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Actually, I really like the tools that we have up here, right? So as a product owner or as a designer, as a person who really likes bots in the company, it's so easy now to use Botsociety or Botmock, for instance, to kind of get your vision out there. So for us, we had this crazy idea that for a travel company, what is a really quick win that we can get to users? And for our users, what they really want are crazy cheap flights to a destination, right? So Coincidentally, we just launched that product today. It's called Fly Club. Go check it out on the Hipmunk bot. But essentially, we mocked out what this product is using these tools, and we gave it to our senior management to say, okay, you can now get a travel deal from SFO to Sweden for $280. Is this compelling or not? And people were like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. It's delivered through this bot. How can it be? So I think when people actually visualize it and see it, it really, really goes a long way.
Thank you for that, by the way. So I think the best way is to get designers on board. So I think that I used to say a lot to companies is that UX bot design is just like web design in 1996, which means if you take a look at web design in 1996, you had a bunch of GIF moving out as backgrounds and forms would bleed your eyes and there would not be like a green big button to push, right? So people had to figure out how to build that. And that happened when designers arrived and said, okay, let's try to make sense of this. And UX bot design is at the same level. So it's just a bunch of stuff apparently random there with no reason. But if you bring UX designers on board, or somebody in another panel before said a UX interaction writer or something like that, but generally somebody who has a design sense, and with design I mean interaction sense. He may be a marketer, he may be somebody from the design team which has an interest in this, it may be a consultant, but there must be somebody which is just in charge of the user experience without having to think through the technological aspect, but just being in charge of that. That's the quickest way to get there, in my opinion.
Great. Anything else? I think those are excellent tips. So if I was to summarize, look through your customer survey. You have more tips? Okay. One more. Great.
Just to build upon these two, what they said, you are really using either Botmock or Botsociety. You can actually create a very realistic looking chatbot and send them a video and tell them this is in production. That'll freak them out. And it really conveys the message to them. It's like, oh, this is how it's going to work. For Facebook, I've seen hacks where people actually have coded something themselves or used our tools to do it. Alexa is one of those where people they literally wrote a skill using many different softwares to simulate one use case, then took their device to their bosses and said, hey, look, this is how it can work. And we can replicate all that now without actually you having to do any of the coding around it. So prototype, like we do for mobile apps, like we do for web apps.
Yeah.
Prototype.
Yeah, so a prototype video, that sounds like an excellent idea. And there's lots of tools now that make that easy. I love your idea about looking through customer service emails, talk to people in that department, like where the pain points, where the areas that we can add value easily, and then, yeah, getting resources or expertise or trying to gain support from people who have a professional background in doing some type of user experience design, maybe even conversational UI design. I think those are excellent tips. I did talk to a lot of people in the audience, and there's a good portion of people here who are like, hey, my company is looking to build a chatbot, and we want to figure out like what's the best way to go about it. And I think we all hope that they would go about it in a way that's good and not a bad experience, right? Excellent. So what about engagement? So those are good tips to get people like on board and build an app. But let's say you've got it out there, like how do you re-engage people? How do you increase engagement? How do you get people to continue to use it? This is something we talked about in the brand panel, right? Like I'm still not convinced that once I've asked Coke like how much caffeine and how much sugar in there that I would go back there. But I'm curious to hear how you address it with your customers and the bots that you're building. Like how do you increase engagement, re-engage people like beyond the initial launch?
I just, stepping back to the last question to segue into the new one, I would just want to highlight the writing is so central to the experience of conversations. And we talk a lot about the functionality and user experience, but the actual words, sometimes you don't need them to be fancy. For instance, 1-800-Flowers, you picture some guy trying to avoid getting in trouble for the weekend or whatever. He wants to get to the point and get the flowers. Then there's something like Wobot, which is the words are carefully chosen. You've got to warm up to the user and get them to empathize, get them to understand that you empathize and you're kind of fun and approachable and they're safe with you. And that takes major copy chops to be able to pull that off. So I just wanted to make sure that all the other stuff is hugely important, but at the end of the day, the last thing, where the rubber meets the road, are the actual words. They need to be clear, concise, and convey the right feeling. It's a hard thing to do. There's no algorithm for that today. There might be one. I don't want to be naive about where it's going 2, 3, 5 years from now, but as of today, somebody said in an earlier panel, a professional writer and a professional data scientist would make a good team for a version 1 bot. So if you want to dive into the bot space and test a version 1 bot that does one thing really well, the writing is crucial. I just wanted to focus on that.
Yeah, engagement, re-engagement.
Yes. So I think the best way to think about engagement, there's no recipe. That's my opinion. There's no like fixed way to generate engagement. But I think the right way to think about this is how two people would interact regardless of the chatbot. And with that, I mean, would you write to a friend on Messenger now after you didn't spoke for 6 months just saying random stuff? How would you do that? And then work your way backwards to the brand, to the way your brand talks. So for example, a good way to hack this is to create an actual next step. So, okay, I'll write you when this happens, or should we talk again when, I don't know, this other thing happens, or do you want me to talk again? So before you end the interaction, you already have defined a next step. So when you reach again, it's not spam, because the user agreed and is actually expecting your message, just like I expect a message from a friend if we say, let's meet on Friday. Yeah.
So 2 points. In terms of thinking about re-engagement, the basic is there's content that you have, whether that be data or interactions, right? And so if you're in a position to have really, really great and compelling content, that makes your job a little easier. For us, again, when you think about what are the steps that users would be willing to go through to get to a flight that is 90% off, well, they'll be willing to go through a lot of steps. So that when you design the bot, you can actually take the user through a lot of confirmation, a lot of back and forth, right? But if it's maybe something like entertainment content where that's more commoditized, then you have a much shorter window to make an emphasis. And so what we're seeing right now is that, and I totally agree that screenwriters, for instance, is in high demand for bots right now. You think about the story that you want to get people through. It doesn't matter what cycle it is, but you want to kind of hit them with a value proposition right away so that they're interested, and kind of lead them through the story with intro, climax, and conclusion to really kind of engage them. And then for us, we found that alerts are a really great way to get re-engagement. So for travel, there are flight alerts. And now with this new product, you're getting alerted. You have to kind of optimize for the cadence of the alerts, but you're getting alerted of crazy cheap flights all the time. Right?
So I look at engagement to what we did on the mobile apps kind of side of things. If you play a game or any app, they try to get you to a state where they're not going to tell you that, oh, do you want us to notify you of this, and that, because you don't know why would you want to get notified. Why would you want that bot or that app to talk back at you at that point, like later time? So get them to the first win, and copy plays a big role in it. Your strategy of what is that one win, what's the value, deliver that value, and then ask. So give them something and then ask back. So Hipmunk does that. It gives you a fare. And then if you decide not to book with it, it then sort of realizes and says, hey, do you want me to alert you about the prices around this? And then I'm like, okay, I'm looking to search for this. So that's a good thing. And then every time it alerts me, it gives me an opt-out. So give me value first, and then I'll come back to it. Same thing on most mobile apps. The ones that you usually open most of the times are the ones who have delivered some value to you. They might not even be pushing notifications to you, but you open them up because you're looking for a restaurant and Yelp has delivered that value for you before. You don't look for another Yelp anymore. You just open Yelp. And same thing with bots. Keep delivering value and they will come back to you.
So there's two last points to add. First, I think it's crucial to remember that as a brand, you're interacting with your customers in their most personal domain. You're not just on their mobile phone in their pocket. You're in their messaging app, the place that they're talking with their friends and their family. And you have to be very selective and conscious of that, so that you're treating it and you are treated like a friend, because you can easily be blocked. The second point I'd like to make is that you, as a brand, there's lots of things that users can do with you online or in your mobile apps. So do something unique in the bot. For Quizlet, that might be enabling group quizzing functionality, which would also allow a more viral approach, because you could see a student pinging other students on Messenger and sharing the bot with them to all play in a group experience game to study whatever it is they're trying to study. And that sort of organic engagement stems from doing something in the platform that they can't do on the website or in the app.
Great. So let's take a question or two from the audience. Anybody want to raise their hand and ask a question? Yes, please. So tips for writers that are moving into chatbot.
Are you a writer? I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah. It's really hard at the beginning, because as a writer, you're used to writing in a linear way. You start at the top, you end at the bottom. This describes how you work on an article or a blog post or an email or a TV commercial, for that matter. The bot, the way that we write them, they look like these crazy octopuses that go on forever. You'd need a giant sheet of paper, and you can't write it from beginning to end, top to bottom. There's a ton of planning that goes into it before you put pen to paper. In addition to that, you need to know what the tone of voice is. And that's sort of like a character study and like a backstory to the character. And that even, I think, is something I should have mentioned about retention, is we hear a lot about getting under the user's skin, creating that emotional bond. So yeah, you can come up with value, to bring them back. Oh, if you come back, we can talk about this or that. That's strategic. That's easy to talk about. Talking about tone of voice is not so easy to talk about. So as a writer, I think you have an advantage, because you've been doing it. You've been living and dying by figuring out how to do that for so long. And I think it's a really huge piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, in the back, yes, please.
Mostly that's true. There are general rules about writing that apply to most writing. Keep it clear, concise, upbeat. I like to keep it at a 4th grade level. Not a huge fan of Trump, but he had a 4th grade level. He had the lowest level of any president. So shit works. But the thing is, it doesn't always work. So you've got to be agnostic about how you're going to write. Again, with the 1-800-Flowers, it's really to the point. With Wobot, it's really like warm and kind of slow and fun. So you just have to have that versatility.
All right. I think that's all we have time for.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. Thank you. Let's have it for our panel.